Everyone, my name is Kim and I'm the founder and creator of Expat Mama. Through these interviews that are in both the audio podcast and the new YouTube channel, we educate people about what it's like to be an expat. An expat is somebody who's left their native country to live in another country, and we tell their stories. Today, my guest is Jordanna Espinosa from California in the US. She currently lives in Cancun, Mexico, and I'm so excited to interview her. Welcome, Jordanna. How are you doing today?
Hi, Kim. Thank you so much for having me today. It's such an honor to be with you. And it's been so great to meet you and talk with you. And so I'm so happy to be able to connect with other expat mamas.
Oh yeah, me too. The honor is truly mine, honestly. And before talking here, I just realized that you're a kindred spirit. So I'm even more excited to interview you for that. So let's talk about where you grew up, what it was like, where you're from, and what was the culture like when you grew up?
Awesome. Thank you. And so I grew up in Anaheim, California, like literally 2 blocks from Disneyland. My high school was in the Disneyland boundaries and same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I grew up always with that sense of magic and, transporting to another world. Both of my parents actually are very, very much homebodies. And so I grew up very much with a stable sense of home in Anaheim, and we didn't move around and stuff like that. And so the idea of traveling the world was always like a dream for me, but never really a reality. I had a very happy childhood with great parents. I was actually born hard of hearing. So I do wear 2 hearing aids. And so I really got to see my parents in action, fighting for the kids' best interest, making sure that I was happy and adapted. And so I lived in Anaheim until I was about almost 18. And then I went off to college, and then my life has been kind of a whirlwind of places and moves since then.
And then how did things change? Let's hear about you had this magical, wonderful, stable childhood with great parents. Lucky you.
I don't know, everybody had that.
Not exactly. Congratulations. That's wonderful that you had that. And I'm sure that our listeners can't wait, our viewers, to hear what you're about. Let's hear the story how you ended up in Cancun.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Another Disneyland, by the way.
I know it is another Disneyland in another way. It's Mexico's Disneyland.
Yeah.
And so actually interesting thing is my husband is from Guadalajara, Mexico. And so we've been married about 16 years and we have 2 kids, 14 and 5. We have our own business, which I will be talking about later. And so where we work from home, and so we can work from anywhere, but we still had a lot of like hotel meetings, in-person meetings, stuff like that. The pandemic hit March 2020 and everything shut down. And being in California, everything really shut down and didn't open for a long time.
Yep.
And so we were forced to take everything completely online, completely from our phones and the computer and whatnot. And so we grew a lot, but not more than that. It was just a sense in 2020 of when you take everything out of your life, what do you remain with? You remain with your family, the core.
Yeah.
And so we actually found that in the simplicity of living without extracurricular activities, without being able to go and blow off steam, Disneyland, for example, because it was closed for so long.
Yeah.
We really needed to work on our relationship as a family and enjoy our time together as a family. And so moving into 2021, we began to explore the idea, like the seeds were planted in our mind of like minimalizing our stuff, because we also realized, why do we have all this stuff? We had the big house, and what for? And it wasn't bringing us happiness, it wasn't bringing us pleasure or joy, really. And so we began to toy that idea of making a change. And so we thought maybe we're going to leave California and go to a different state, but then the answer came that we're not supposed to do that. So then we decided to become digital nomads, and where we take our business on the road and travel. And we had the wonderful idea that we're going to spend 1 month per city or 1 month per country and go and explore. But then, so we decided our first stop was going to be Cancun, Mexico, because my husband is from Mexico and I've been here before. So it would be like a way to ease into the nomadic traveling for the world.
Kind of like a soft landing, because you're already familiar, right?
Soft landing, that's a better way to say it.
Mm-hmm.
But we got here and realizing I'm not cut out. The idea of planning where to go for the next month stressed me out to the point where I just broke down, because I realized I have a 14-year-old and a 5-year-old. They're 9 years apart. And I was their only source of entertainment and routine and stuff like that. I said, no, we need to stay here. So that's kind of how we ended up in Cancun in a good situation. It was always my husband's dream to come here and live here. And so I wanted to make that happen for him. And so here's where we landed, and here's where we shall stay for the foreseeable future. And so it's been good.
It's awesome. Now, what was your life like as far as, let's talk about the cost of living? We talked a little bit before we started recording. You were renting in California, in Southern California, right?
Yes, we were in Southern California, exactly. It was the cost of living. One of the things was, we get here to Cancun and we're in a very nice house, but the rent is a third of what we were paying in California. The market starts to go crazy in the US, and especially in California, the landlords are raising the rent. So the landlords wanted to raise our rent to over $5,000 a month. And and even though we could technically afford it, it was still like we didn't want to. Like, why were we paying so much money for a house when we could have so much more rich life experiences by spending less money and using it to build wealth, first of all, because when you're spending that much, it's hard to build wealth because you're spending so much. But not only that, we also had a brand new car that we had just purchased the month before the pandemic hit. So it's been the entire pandemic pretty much parked in our front yard, and we didn't really drive it. And so it was just things like that that really caused us to re-examine our life and our priority.
Yeah,
and so
that makes complete sense. So why Cancun? I mean, you could go anywhere in Mexico. Your husband's from near where I live, from Guadalajara. I'm only an hour away from there. Why Cancun of all places? Or you just wanted the Disneyland continuation? Just kidding.
It sounded nice to me as a place to visit for a month or so. And my husband had always dreamed of living in Cancun because he's a very much tropical beach kind of a person. And so it would not have been my first choice. But I would have preferred something a little bit more temperate, something more on the West Coast, kind of like Guadalajara. However, I'm liking it. I'm finding joy in being here, and it's just beautiful scenery, and I'm finding good reason to be here.
Okay. And how are your kids adapting, if I may ask?
My kids are adapting. My son is happier than he was in California because he was so isolated. And then he just got here and he said he's reconnecting with his roots because he is half Mexican, my husband Mexican. And so he's just saying that he noticed that people are more open to being friends here. And so he had made more friends in the short time here in Cancun than he had in California, where he lived for 4 years.
It's so different, isn't it? I mean, it's like people here in Mexico will actually make time for you, whereas in the US, and especially during a pandemic, they really have to think about getting together. And I was in California recently too. I know what that felt like in lockdown, and it was the pure definition of, hell, let's just say it. Couldn't go anywhere, couldn't do anything. In our case, we didn't have a car, so we couldn't even go through Taco Bell. You can't go there walking, stuff like that was happening. That's another story. The focus is on you. So I'm looking here at your questionnaire, and you were like, you really had to just kind of start to prioritize what's really important. You wanted to stop all the busyness of your lives. What did your lives really look like then before you made the decision to come to Mexico, besides the cost of living?
Besides the cost of living, I mean, the routine is still fairly simple. I mean, my kids are starting to go to school. We had a nanny. My husband was like in the back home office, working and doing his stuff, and sometimes 6-8 hours a day. But it was just a continual feeling like we were in a hamster wheel, and just kind of feeling like the pressure, like the societal and political pressures in California, just seeing the divisiveness between the people, or just feeling like we're being judged when we go out, or it just kind of started to put a pressure on it that we just wanted to get out of that. We just wanted to live a little bit more free
and simpler, right? Simpler life.
Super
Yeah.
for sure. You know, and here, I mean, my kids still go to school, my husband still works, but we don't feel such the financial pressure or the society pressure or political pressure. And so in a way, we're able to kind of come here and heal. I kind of wanted to bring that up here, like
Yes.
it's just been an incredible way to heal. When you simplify, you can heal past hurts, past traumas, and you have time to reflect because you're not like so stressed out thinking about, oh, I need to be able to make some extra money to pay the rent this month or something.
Mhm.
And so it's been a really interesting time of reflection and meditation and healing and growing.
Totally get what you're saying. I always tell people when they really want to know that Mexico has been our healing place as a family in so many ways. It's been kind of just step back from the busyness and from that hamster wheel, like you mentioned, and just get down to what is really important, which is family.
Uh-huh.
And that is the main prevailing culture here in this country. It's family.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You know, and for me, I even take like, I've noticed like, you know, my anti-anxiety medications, I'm lowering the dosage because I'm like, oh, maybe it wasn't for me. I'm not saying this is the case for everybody. Like maybe for me, it wasn't so much, you know, chemical imbalance in my brain. Maybe it was just the pressures caused by living.
It's environmental.
Yeah.
Don't you think? Yeah, I totally agree with that. With you in that regard, it's like, okay, we changed environment and we changed and we were able to eliminate some of those maybe toxic dependency, whatever you want to call it. It's not necessary anymore. Isn't that interesting? It's so interesting.
It is.
So what else? You've been around, you've been in other countries as well. What was
Yes,
that?
we have. And so this is actually my third time living in Mexico. The first time I came here, I was a student in college learning Spanish. And so I got a job teaching English. And so just me and one other American in the little pueblito for 4 months. So I learned to speak quite a bit. And then the second time I lived in Mexico, and then I went back and I met my husband. Well, I already knew him, but we started dating, got married. And then when he got a job working for the company that we're with right now, he worked for the company, and then they sent us to Mexico City for 2 years. And then my oldest was born, so my oldest was born a Mexican. And then, you know, and then once he quit his job and we became affiliates for the company, we lived in Peru and Miami. I consider Miami another country.
Oh, it is another country.
Absolutely. And so, you know, Miami, we lived in Peru, we lived in Lima for 15 months. And that was a magical experience. I mean, next to Mexican food, Peruvian food is bar none. And so then we moved back, and then now here we are in Mexico. So this is my fourth time living internationally. And so something I'm going to be talking about a little bit later, when you prompt me, is how culture shock changes each time we do this international move.
Yeah, let's talk about that actually. Let's talk about it right now if you're willing. I found that you had posted something about culture shock on Facebook, and I'm like, you've got to be my next interview. I have a list of people that I need to interview, but I'm like, this is the time to interview her, because let's talk about this. Let's talk about what culture shock is. First of all, let's define what culture shock is, and then let's talk about what it feels like for you, what it's felt like.
Well, so culture shock, I mean, if you read up on it, you find it kind of goes into various phases. So if it's your first time in a country, or it doesn't even have to be another country, like going from one state to another, like for me, when I was, you know, growing up in California, and then I moved to Utah, there's a culture shock for sure. And the culture shock from Utah to Florida, as we were discussing previously.
Yeah.
You know, you move there, you move to this new place, everything is magical, everything is new and it's wonderful, the honeymoon phase. And then you start to see the cracks in the foundation, and everything starts to kind of break down. You start to notice the things that are wrong. And then the bottom is where you're like, oh my gosh, everything is so wrong with this place. I want to go home. And that's a trick that your mind plays on you. It tries to take you back to where you feel like life was safe and life was simpler for you. So your mind takes you back
and familiar.
So that's the homesickness. So you get there, and then the next phase is like, you know what, then you start to negotiate and barter and say, you know what, yes, this is different, but I'm learning this and I'm growing, and kind of go back up again. And so that happened to me the first time I lived in Mexico. And then where you become fully adapted. That's at the top, you become fully adapted, bicultural, bilingual, whatever. Or even bicultural, even in different states in the United States. I mean, culture within the United States as well. But so I thought I had gone through there the first couple of times I lived in Mexico, getting used to Mexican culture, getting used to the fact that like the driving is different, government processes are going to take like several steps, how you have to tip everybody. I thought I was used to all that by now. Like this is not my first rodeo. This is like my fourth time doing this. None of this stuff surprises me anymore. So I wasn't getting worked up over that so much this time around. But what I found interesting was I was triggering all of the past traumas from the time that I got upset about these different things when I was in my 20s, the first couple of times I lived in Mexico. I remember like, I was so inflexible, I think because I had never moved, I had never traveled growing up. I was so inflexible in my mindset or in my ability to adapt that I was like, oh man, I'm wasting so much money on tips, or oh man, this is such, a waste of time. I have to go back to this government office and go back 10 times because I'm missing the signature of my dead grandmother's dog, And even though I thought I had worked in the moment, I'm like kind of got over it. I find that a lot of that stuff like that gets kind of trapped into your psyche and you don't really deal with it or heal from it. And most people don't have that ability in their emotional toolbox in their 20s or sometimes even older, to be able to frame it properly. So I was finding that past things were getting triggered. And so even though I knew what to expect, I was going into in different interactions, kind of expecting the worst. Like I would go to the store expecting them to be rude to me. I would go into the store expecting them to turn me away and make me do something, or again be rude, because that was my experience in Mexico City. Or I would just drive past the police and I would just like tense up, expecting them to pull me over and ask me for a bribe, or just things like that. And so I was sitting on the beach, in my post. I mean, it's public, so anybody who wants to go find it can go find it. But I was sitting on the beach, just feeling sorry for myself. It's so pitiful. I mean, beautiful beach, palm trees, breeze, and everything. I'm feeling sorry for myself, crying. But then I had that realization: it was past traumas being triggered, and that for me, I had to see those past traumas, address them, recognize them, and try to heal from those past traumas to make my present more bearable. And so, because it's not fair to the people that I encounter at the store for me to be rude to them because of something that happened to me 20 years ago. No. I mean, for them, they're interacting with me for the first time. And so it's irresponsible of me to try to put that burden on them or ruin their day in any way. And so it's like an onion. Like my favorite part of Shrek, the movie Shrek, is that we're like an onion. You have to peel away the layers. And so I'm finding that the healing comes in layers like that. And so even just healing from things in my childhood, great childhood, but still like emotional coping skills that I have to peel away and recognize until I get to the core of who I am, which I believe is like a limitless, unlimited being of great potential.
Yeah. What is it that just clicked, that started the unraveling of this, and you're like, okay, you had kind of a self epiphany that you're like, I'm the one that needs to change. I'm the one that needs to deal with this finally, after so many years of maybe putting it on a shelf, or you can call it just not dealing with it.
And so, I mean, I do follow a lot of people on social media who deal like holistic psychology and who deal with self-help and self-care. And I'm interested in all of those kind of books, learning and stuff like that. But honestly, the moment that it clicked for me, I was, doing a prayer. I was saying a prayer or meditating at Samuel. And you know what? For me, God kind of smacks me around in the head sometimes. It's like, he's like, and so he kind of smacked me in the head and said, this is what it is. And so once I felt that, then, oh, okay, I can start dealing with it. But that's kind of how, that was the click. It was like one specific prayer that is just made it different for me, like night and day. Like after the prayer, I was like, okay, I'm a different person. Like I finally felt I could put myself together enough to begin dealing with it.
Good for
Because
you.
before it was like the water and the garrafon was out. We don't have water, So
Because
little things would trigger.
nothing will make you grow. Because like we talked before, nothing, you're gonna hit a wall, and nothing will make you grow like living in another country and having to deal with another culture and make you see the ugly American that you are.
Yes, absolutely.
Because we grow up in a different way, and we grow up in a very privileged and entitled way. And we're not necessarily the kindest people until we learn how to deal with those things that you're now dealing with. So interesting, so interesting. I love this, love this. So there's the spirituality factor here. Yeah, definitely. So now what's going on? You're getting past this. This is a recent change in your life.
Yeah. And so I'm getting past this. And so finally, I've come to a reckoning. I just turned 40, and it's like I feel like, oh man, I wish I would have known all of this in my 20s and 30s, but that's just part of growing up. And so it just happens to so many people that like we finally have the emotional maturity in our 40s to come to a reckoning of everything in our past and really get creative in the next couple of decades. And so, I've been able to identify just some of the false beliefs that I had held about myself or about my role within my marriage and with the family as well, and then my role in society. And so in this next decade, I'm excited, like I'm a limitless being. I've had unlimited potential. And so I have a very brilliant business mind. I'm good at numbers. I'm good at business and stuff like that. And so my husband and I have been developing a business for the last 10 years, but he's been the one mostly developing it. And now it's my turn to kind of step in and help, and develop it as well. And so I was mostly content to kind of hang back and hang in the shadows and let him be the star. And then kind of jump in with the numbers when needed. But I'm ready to take it on, and like I have a market to serve. I mean, I have so many life experiences that if people that need to know what I know, that need to have what I can offer. And so I'm ready in this next phase of life just to be more transparent and authentic and bring people along that journey with me.
And what's that like? If you can talk about it a little bit, whatever you want to keep talking about or leading the interview, let's go ahead. You're in charge. I'm handing the ball to you.
Oh my goodness.
The baton, excuse me, not the but. See, this is what happens when you live in another country. You start forgetting the expressions and stuff. So I'm handing the baton to you. Take it away.
Okay. I know when you become bilingual, you're like, okay, the phrase from here and a phrase from there, and it kind of mixes together, and only the people that speak Spanglish know what you're talking about. Totally. And so when you go back home, the people that haven't experienced this just don't even know how to relate to you anymore. Like my parents don't know how to really relate to me. They love me, but they've lived in this house for 50 years. And so, but anyhow, no, but this next phase of my life is exciting, but it's also scary because you're kind of putting yourself out there. Like in that post that you mentioned that inspired you to want to contact me for this interview, it's very vulnerable for me. It's like, I'm going to put this out there and share, like bare my soul. But I found that when I did that, so many people were able to resonate with it because we have so many shared experiences that we're afraid to talk about. So I mean, I'm not afraid to talk about like, mental illness as well, like depression and anxiety, because so many of us struggle with it, or so many of us have dealt with it. I'm not afraid to talk about like this extreme culture shock and the fact that I'm living in a beautiful paradise. I'm struggling. And I'm also not going to be afraid to talk about like, hey, I have for me, I'm going to segue into, my business as well. I have this wonderful direct sales business is unlimited potential as well, but I'm so afraid develop it sometimes because I don't want to offend people or I don't want people to judge me. I still have that people pleasing aspect. I think that we all encounter when exposing ourselves like this.
Yeah.
It really it's terrifying. It's terrifying in a beautiful way. And so I'm excited to see what happens. And so I really feel that with the pressure that's being taken off of us from having to like run in the rat race in California, that I'm able to grow in business as well in a way that can impact and inspire thousands of people. It's where I can actually impact and inspire. I mostly want to work with women because that's who I am. That's my market, but I'll take men too. Impact and inspire women. And so I can actually do it from a place of love and care rather than from a self-interested place of, oh, I need you to work with me because I need to make money for this next month. And so there's really a difference in energy in between those two approaches and stuff like that.
Your energy has shifted.
It does. And so when I can find other women, I can be able to treat them more holistically as well, recognizing and encouraging that we all struggle with these same fears and we all struggle with these same issues. And so many of it is stuff that we don't even realize has been ingrained in us from childhood or from church or from society or for whatever, where we continually doubt ourselves. And so I want to take people on that journey with me. And I just feel like I'm rambling.
It's okay, but you know what? Think about this. You're a leader and now you're in a culture. What is Mexican culture? I'm gonna come back and link this in a minute.
Mhm.
What is Mexican culture really like? Or at least where you live.
At least where I live. I have found the people to be generous and friendly and open. I go to church and people are friendly to me, and so it kind of taken me a while to warm up because I guess that's just the ugly American in me. It's like, okay, they only want one thing, or they only see me as a cash cow. And I kind of still struggle with that feeling when I'm out in the touristy areas of Cancun, for example.
Yeah.
But I have found just a very friendly, warm, and open people who are just open to getting together and who make, like you mentioned before, who make time for you and people who are willing to help out. And so I really have a great love for the Mexican people and the Mexican culture, having been a part of it for the last 20 some odd years, either directly or by living here or indirectly because I'm married to a Mexican and surrounded by everything. It's really become a part of me, and I appreciate it. I feel divided when I go back home, and the Mexican part of me, it just doesn't fit in with the American part of society. And so
maybe it's changing you. It's changing you, and really being immersed in another culture will bring out facets of you. It's like you're a different person in a different language and a different culture. Don't you find that there's two?
I do.
There's two of you that are. I know I'm a different person in this culture, and I'm a different person in the Argentine culture than I am in the US. And I honestly, and I'm being fully transparent, I don't think I'm as nice a person in the US as I am here. Why? Because I'm just not as happy there as I am here. Yeah, and that brings out the better parts of us,
I totally agree with you there. I mean, it's like I'm a nice person in the US, but in Mexico, I'm happier, I'm louder for one.
More authentic, maybe.
I'm much more talkative and stuff like that. Once I warm up, and I'm funnier, and and my husband's another example of this. Like he also lived in Brazil for 3 years, and so for my husband's name is Leo. So he's got a Brazilian Leo, he has a Mexican Leo, and he has his American Leo, and the different levels of volume for each one. Brazilian Leo is really loud. Mexican Leo is just loud, and American Leo is just like a little bit more,
subdued.
Yeah. And so the same thing here. Like I really feel like I'm much more authentically myself in Mexico than I am in the US.
And as a leader, you're evolving into a better Jordanna. Think
Yes.
about it. Think about it. Now they're going to get another facet of you. And is your company also located in Mexico? Are
Yes.
you? Okay.
Yes, exactly.
Mhm.
And so if anybody wants to reach out and see if it's a fit for them, I'd be happy to talk about it. I mean, I'll segue into that. I mean, the company that I work with is called For Life Research. So it's been around since 98. And it's based out of Utah, like most of the network marketing companies are.
Yep.
And we joined this company because my husband, when we were engaged, he wanted to have a job for us to get married. And so he was looking everywhere, couldn't find a job in his field of marketing. And so he was driving down the freeway and saw this company For Life Research, and he knew that a friend worked there. So he went to stop and said hi. And so a friend said, hey, I know you need a job so you can get married. You know, why don't you come work in the call center? And my husband was like, no, I'm a professional.
Yeah. Oh.
But, you know, talking to me, he's like, you know what? I said to him, I'm like, do you want to get married? Yes or no? He's like, well, yeah, okay, take the job. And so
I love it. I love it as a fiance. Do you want to get married or yes or no? Just
yeah, I didn't understand it.
all the cards out
like,
on the table.
for me, being engaged at the time, I was like, all we need is love. You know, we'll figure it out. But he wanted to be stable before he got married. So anyhow, the company was For Life Research. He worked in the call center, and then he moved into the marketing department, and he worked for the company for 6 years. And so we got to see all the stories of all the people who had changed their lives with the product or the compensation plan. And so we made the decision after 6 years of working there to quit his job and become affiliates for the company. Mm-hmm. And he had to do that because it would be conflict of interest for him to do both, obviously.
Yeah.
And so we hated the idea of network marketing or direct sales at the beginning. We really got to see the pure essence of what it does to help people and empowers people, and especially the company in particular, just the goodness and the honesty and the integrity of the founders and the leaders. And so we knew that we were in good hands. So about 10 years ago, almost 11, he quit his job and then we became affiliates. And so it's been our main full-time income. And so the company does focus on immune system support. And so it's not just like vitamin C, or other product that you see at the grocery store, which just gives you a kick in the pants. The main product is called transfer factor. And so it actually goes in and modulates your immune system. So sourced from colostrum and egg yolk, you know, from the information that a mother feeds to the baby. So cow colostrum, not human colostrum, don't worry. We're not harvesting from humans here. But anyways, what it goes in and it modulates your immune system, because sometimes people with allergies, their immune system is overactive. And so it goes in and it balances it. And some people with, you know, other issues, the immune system is too low, so it goes in and balances it as well. And so we have a gajillion testimonials and stuff like that. But, you know, of course, for legal reasons, I cannot say this cures that. Right. But you can use your imagination when it's just imagining what happened once COVID hit, and all of a sudden this demand for immune system support, you know, came to play, and people realized
skyrocketed, probably. Yeah.
Exactly. People realize the importance of the immune system. So yeah, the company has 22 offices worldwide, plus the team itself is located in over 160 companies. And so I have people in about 15 countries.
Yeah.
And language. So we have English, Spanish, and Portuguese.
Nice.
Yeah, we could have a trilingual husband. The majority of it's actually in Spanish, and so we have a building team here in Mexico as well. And then we have people in Argentina as well. I mean, some of the markets are a little bit different.
Yeah.
Because they're emerging markets, but we have ways to make it happen.
That's pretty awesome. So they're in 130 countries, you say?
Mm-hmm. The team is, yeah. So whether like we find ways to pay them at an emerging market, and my son is saying hi to me, pay them at an emerging market or shipping the products. And so, but the company
bring your son in. We want to say hi to him. Bring him on camera.
You want to come and say hi? Sure. Yeah, this is my son, Tiago Espinosa. He's the one that's born in Mexico City.
What a cutie.
Yes, he is.
What's your name?
Tiago.
Tiago. So that's like more of a Brazilian name.
Yeah. Exactly, because of my husband's experience in Brazil.
I love
And
it. I
so-
used to live down in Argentina, and I never told you this, but I've studied Portuguese for many years too.
Ooh, very cool.
So I'm
So-
on my way to becoming
Duolingo right
trilingual
now.
too, but I think I just need to move there and learn it for.
Oh, maybe we'll move there together because I'm learning it with the expectation that maybe someday we'll go and move there, like, well, the digital nomad traveling. the
I'm
world,
on
like-
board with that. I'm always open to stuff like that. Yeah. So we're on a YouTube channel right now. We should get our sons together.
Live.
How old are you?
14.
14. I have a 15-year-old son. All the more reason we need to meet.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Also, do you like living in Cancun? I'm gonna interview.
Yes,
ask you a
yes,
question.
please involve him in what we're talking about. How do you like
Uh,
Cancun?
I like Cancun a lot. It's the food is great. Made a lot of friends here, and I don't know, it's just the culture is very nice.
Mhm. I'm in Mexico too. I'm over here in Chapala, which is close to Guadalajara. Yeah,
But, oh, cool.
yeah, we might actually meet each other soon, face to face, it looks like.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
That would be
And so
awesome.
like, he was not on board with the idea of moving to Mexico at the beginning, right? No, because why? Because he liked his school, he liked his friends.
You had a life set up. Mhm.
Yeah.
My son, when we left Argentina, my two sons were born in Buenos Aires, Argentina. The younger one had no problem because he was 6 when we moved to the United States, so that we've moved countries twice now, 2.5, I would say. And the pictures, the older son we're talking about, the one that was 15 at the time, had this really horrible, as we say in Spanish, cara de culo. That's probably something I shouldn't say, but he had kind of a butt face on. He did not want to move countries at that age. He had dad died, we moved countries. And then today he's like, I'm so thankful that I was able to finish high school in the US, because in Argentina, he experienced a lot of bullying. It was really a hard environment that we were in at the time. No, nothing to say bad about Argentina, but that was his experience as a teenager. And the school system wasn't the best for him. So then we moved to the US. He graduated from high school there, loved it. And now we're in Mexico. He just got engaged yesterday.
Congratulations.
He just got engaged yesterday. So happy that I made the decision as a single mom to come to Mexico. So we're actually upgrading each time.
Yes.
Yeah, so thankful for all the experiences. Mhm.
Yes. Well, I can excuse you now unless you want to continue interviewing.
That's okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Cutie, okay. He's a doll.
Yes, he is.
Okay.
And so there you go. You have it straight from his mouth. He likes it, the food.
Mhm.
And so, I mean,
What's not to like?
what's not to like? Exactly. And the fact that, like, that he said it unprompted, he's made friends and he likes the people here.
Yeah, and you can't tell a kid what to say. It shows on his face that he's totally content. He's happy to be here,
Yeah. Exactly. So, I mean, you and I kind of briefly discussed this beforehand. Like for me personally, for those who are listening, Cancun is not my favorite place to be. It's not a lot of culture. There's not a lot of the city itself is not very charming. The beaches are beautiful, but it's it's very touristy, and
Mhm.
I'm not a huge fan of that because I don't like being jalada, being pulled in different
Pulled.
directions.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
it's, so many things. I don't like that much, but I'm willing to put up with it because my kid is happy. And there's a lot that when we see our kids thriving and flourishing, I mean, that's what does it for me. He was
Yeah.
not thriving and flourishing in California where we were. He was-
There's nothing more that'll make us as mamas happy as to see our kids happy. And who wouldn't sacrifice that if you see your kids thriving in some place?
Exactly. And so I think, yeah, I mean, and I have to remember too, I'm only 40. I mean, keep that in mind. I'm only 40. I still have 50 years ahead of me if I'm
Yeah.
really lucky, if I take care of myself. I mean, I'm planning on it.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm only here for a few years with my kids. So if I can maybe set some things aside for the time being, I have all the time in the world to enjoy it later. But like, going back to the business thing, it's important for my kid to see me working towards my goals and dreams. So I can't set myself aside completely, just letting my life be absorbed into theirs.
Right.
But, I support them, and they also need to see me working on my goals and my dreams as well.
It's a great example, and you're doing it as a team. So that what better example for your kids than to see that their parents are great leaders. They're doing team building in different countries around the world. I mean, that's exciting.
It is. We have friends worldwide. It's cool.
That's the best.
I know, like my friends are like, come visit me. I have a house in Colombia. Come stay with my house. I'm like, sure.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, the world is their oyster, and it's your oyster too. I mean, that's true freedom, like knowing you can put your finger on a map and like, I know somebody there. And that's the beauty of this lifestyle. So beyond business, I always, when I talk with my expat mamas and papas too, because we're not going to discriminate men, but we mostly bond as women. There's another lady that she's Canadian. Her name's Christy, and we always talk about, for example, how traveling just changes you from the core, and you'll never be the same again. Okay.
No, because you really have to let go of your preconceived notions and stuff like that of what is good and what is best. Because what you think is the best in your world is not how things are done in other places. And you know what? The way things are done in other places actually might make more sense.
Exactly. Even though they drive differently, and I'll tell you I remember when we went to Cancun 2 years ago. It was it's kind of an interesting story because we were living in Merida at the time, and I went on my favorite kayak app. I love that app. And you just go in there. If you've ever been on that, it's awesome. And there's other similar apps, and you just put on is it everywhere or anywhere option, and you can just see, like, you put a budget in there and you can like see where you can go for a certain budget. I don't know. I can't remember.
I haven't tried that yet, but I mean, actually that sounds like fun. I mean, I should do it for here, just like, anywhere, and just see what pulls up for the next weekend.
You're in a privileged position because every single country and airline flies to Cancun, and you can find the cheapest flights from Cancun. Because we were located in Merida about 2 years ago, and the flights were not cheap going from there. So we take this little bus, not a little bus, ADO bus, ADO, and we go to, it was 4 hours to go to Cancun, and then we just head out to wherever we wanted to go. So when we weren't, before we became residents of Mexico, because we're on our way to becoming full-fledged Mexicans now, our third nationality. We were still tourists living in Mexico. Things were different back then. And our 6 months came up, so we had to leave the country, or I should say, more specifically, our 180 days, because right now things are cracking down in this country. But back then, you had to leave every six months or so. Let's just call it that to make it easy. And so I'm like, where can we go? I've got this, I'm just going to put in like a budget, $150, in dollars. And let's see where we can go, because we need to leave the country. Well, Medellin, Colombia came up. So this is
$150?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm like, okay, we're going to take that 4-hour bus to Cancun, because all the flights are cheaper. We have to get to Cancun. And we rented an Airbnb for a few nights. And that, so we stayed a couple nights in this Airbnb, and the owner was from Cuba. So everything has a little story behind it. So we stayed in this place. Next door neighbors, the owners were Cubanos, and this wonderful Airbnb hostess in Cancun totally brought us coffee every morning with a Cuban breakfast, and then she actually took us to the airport for free, and I just like, it planted the seed. And this was we were heading to Medellin, Colombia, which ended up being the best vacation of our lives, hands down, bar none. But at that point, she told us a story about how she was able to leave Cuba by creating a clandestine perfume shop, perfumeria, in
Really?
her basement in Cuba, and was able to get enough. This was a secret thing that she did that the government and nobody knew about, but people would come and buy from her, you know, like a, what's the translation in perfumeria? Help me out.
It's a yeah.
It's a perfume shop, but it had beauty products,
Oh, yeah.
So we had set this up in Cuba, and she says, and I told her, I said, I have a podcast. I'm starting a podcast. I want to interview. And she said, no. There's no way that I can be on anything that could possibly put me in danger. I don't want my name mentioned. I certainly, can I take a picture with you? No. Okay, all right. But that planted the seed for me to like, I need to go to Cuba. Okay, so we're up in Medellin, having the vacation of our lives. We met up with another American single mom family with twins there. She took us all around the city. We had the best vacation ever. Can't wait to get back to Colombia. Love Colombia. And then I'm up there and I'm like, I'm on the app again. I'm on my kayak. And the travel bug has bit me, you know, and I'm like, I want to go somewhere else. So I went on there. Within 3 weeks, there was a super cheap flight for $100 from Cancun to Havana, Cuba. And I'm like, and I was like, that was really fresh in my mind. Her story was so inspiring, and it just made me cry, how the sacrifices that people make, you know, and their stories are so compelling. I'm like, we've got to go to Cuba. And I said to my boys, I said, how about if we go, like, I've just found this fair that we can go in like 3 weeks. We were there in Colombia in February. It was for the first days of March. Really, Mom? Really? And I'm like, here's the fair right here. I can buy it right now. Should I buy it? And they're like, yeah, let's do it. So I bought it. And then in the next month, taking that bus back to Cuba, to Cancun, so we could go to Cuba, you know, and we did it. And that was also a life-changing trip.
You know, that's a dream of mine, to go to Cuba as well. And like, of course, for so many years, it was just not possible to be able to do it from the US.
Well, yeah, from the US, no, it's not possible. But after this, maybe we'll have another interview on how to travel to Utah. I'm back in Utah. How to travel to Cuba from Mexico as an American, because that's how you have to do it. You have to travel from Mexico.
Yeah. And so that was always the idea too. Like, you know, we would like fly to Mexico and then go to Cuba. We just haven't done it yet.
Oh, you'll be able to do it now. You'll be able to do it. Being there in Cancun, I can give you all the tips and everything. It requires.
If I go to the beach, I could probably see it from Isla Mujeres.
I'll hook you up with the lady. We actually ended up staying not in a hotel or a hostel. We ended up staying with a Cuban lady, which made all of the difference in our trip, because we got the inside view of what it's like. She told us that she was a doctor who had done her whole career in the Caribbean because of the lack of opportunities, obviously, being a Cuban. And she also had Spain residency. So she spent her time in the Caribbean during her whole medical career as a pathologist. She would make us breakfast every morning. She'd direct us everywhere we needed to go. That was an awesome, very different trip from the Medellin, Colombia one, but also life-changing.
And then I think it's also, you kind of bring up something interesting there. Like, this is a professional doctor. Like, she is a doctor, but yet because of the culture, she's just making you breakfast, she's serving you. And that's what I find so warming about the Hispanic culture overall. It's like, it's just the service and just the warmth and generosity. And so I just,
the hospitality is bar none. I mean, honestly, and I saw that in Cuba too. I saw that we'd go to the same restaurant every single day, and these really cute waiters would come and we would tip them. Okay, now think about this. Their whole monthly salary is the equivalent of $12 a month in Cuba.
Oh my goodness.
And I was tipping them every day probably, I don't know, I can't even remember what it was. Let's say I gave a $3 tip every day.
That's like a whole week's worth right there.
This cute waiter would come to us, and he almost had tears in his eyes, and he said, it's the first time the only time in my life somebody has just like come to me, I'm getting tears in my eyes, and just said, thank you for that tip, especially thanking me because it meant so much to him, because, oh, here we go, because their lives are so oppressed and so
Wow.
underprivileged, not anything like we've even been able. And traveling to Cuba is not just like, you don't just buy a ticket and travel to Cuba. It's not the way it works. There's a lot of logistics involved in that. I would love it if I could connect you guys with this woman who is awesome. And they lost our luggage on that trip. This was my fault. I shouldn't have just piled all of our clothes into one suitcase. The airline lost our luggage. So we had basically that whole trip, we had the clothes on our back. The only clothes that we had we were wearing them. So this poor lady, she's awesome. She would wash our clothes every night, and we would put on sheets. And they dry immediately because it's so hot there.
Yeah. But at the same time, it's like so simple. Like, you probably just found it so much more simple. Like, hey, you don't have to worry about coordinating outfits or anything. It's like, you wake up, this is what you wear.
Yeah, this is what I wore. And it was, my little black dress that I wore to Cuba. And I have all the pictures in that clothing my kids did. We ended up buying some t-shirts, but not much more, and you sweat there. It's hot. It's Caribbean weather, But this is what she would do. And so we put on the sheets to go to bed. And she says, you know what? All my girlfriends are never going to believe me that I have 3 ghosts living in my house right now. She had to take pictures of us, and she sent me the pictures later. She emailed them to us, and we're still in touch. Those are friendships that are going to last like a whole lifetime.
That's the magic of traveling. You don't get this when you just stay at a resort or something. And like, or even living here, just talking about simplicity stuff. All 4 members of my family, we arrived with 2 suitcases each. So we don't have a gajillion outfits. And so we even kind of like, I look at my closet, it's very simple. I have about like 15 shirts and like 10 pairs, 5 pairs of pants. And that's all I need. And I felt the itch a few weeks ago, like, I wish I had more clothes. It's not going to make me happy. It was just
American
like,
in you was fighting to get out.
Yeah, I know, I want to get out.
Yeah, but that's all you need. And you live so much more simply. And you realize that you can be so much happier with so much less.
That we really kept time to focus on the kids. And so like that relationship, that interaction that I had with my son, that just wasn't happening as much back home. And so it's happening more now because I'm not so distracted by a gajillion things. I'm able to spend one-on-one time with him because his love language is quality time. And he doesn't care what it is. Like I'm driving him to soccer and back, that's time with him. He likes it when I play Switch with him, or like the Nintendo Classic Console, like, letting him beat me in a game. This stuff that just wasn't happening despite our best intentions back home.
He's getting the best version of mom and dad there.
Yeah.
Not even speaking about dad, I'm just talking about you, but he's, and of course, a happy mom is happy. What is it? Happy wife is happy.
And happy wife, happy life. And so a happy mom is
happy mom
life.
Yeah, whatever. We can't make a rhyme up on the fly right now, but yeah. Excuse me. I love this. And so you can see the joy in his eyes. You can see he's a happy teenager, and those are hard to find, a happy teenager.
I know, right? Oh,
yeah.
He still has those moments. I'm like, but,
of course. Yeah, we all have those moments.
Like we had a big fight yesterday, but then completely unprompted last night, he apologized, and not just like this lame, sorry, like a typical teenager, but he was like, I'm so sorry that I said this and this, and I did and this. I'm like, wow, it really impressed me. I'm like, he's growing. And so being that intentional parenting is really what traveling life is about for us, to be able to be intentional with our parents, which is what our business has been able to provide us because we're not working outside the home. I mean, the business is business, this kind of business is not for everybody, but it's a good option. And so if it's not for you, like some people just don't like it, and that's fine. I'm not going to pressure them. But we wanted to be able to dictate our time and our resources into what's going to actually bring us lasting, eternal, everlasting happiness, which is our family.
That's awesome.
And so,
What about
you're back. And now you're on mute. And you're on mute. There you go.
about that? Okay.
Like, mute. I know. I was like, what? It's like
To make these
I guess it's not
funny,
now.
funny, like zombie kind of poses, and I'm like, something's going on with the connection. It happens. It makes life more interesting.
It does. It really does.
About your family relationships and how they've improved by living abroad.
And so, I mean, it's just like, for one, it's just having a more authentic relationship with my teenager. And it's not, it's like we're able to connect more because there's less distractions as well. The same with my 5-year-old daughter, like she's the one that's like struggling the most because she has it in her mind that she's going to go back to, to California. She's going to go home and she doesn't need to learn Spanish. And so I've had to learn to, my kids are very different. My son's a lot more flexible in learning Spanish, but it's just learning to see her on her level as well, and not just kind of shove her off to preschool and, not address her needs. But not only that, but it's also the relationship with my husband as well, is having to actually communicate these things and telling him, like when I get upset or I'm freaking out, I'm sorry, I'm not completely in control. This is what's happening. And so being able to explain to him all of these different culture shock or past traumas, and it's not even like big trauma that you can think of, as like little things that happen that just kind of coming back now. And so our relationship has become stronger as well, as we have to talk more and communicate more, and we're not just floating along in our lives and in that busyness.
Well, was your husband raised in both countries, in Mexico, or mostly in the US? What's his background?
But he was raised in Mexico, in Guadalajara. And so the kind of same as me, like he grew up his entire life in Guadalajara. He never thought he was going to leave until his parents were called to serve a mission in Brazil. And so he was 16. And so he graduated high school in Brazil, lived in Brazil for 3 years. So that was his first exposure to international living. And so that kind of broke his mold, his mindset of what's possible out there. So like he got to know a whole new aspect of his persona, like Portuguese Leo, which is super loud and even more friendly and outgoing.
Yeah, and then Brazilian culture is really that way.
And then he served a church mission in Idaho where it's English speaking. So then, but since then, he spent most of his time in the US since after his mission, because then he went to college and then we got married, and we have spent most of our marriage in the United States, even though we've been about like three, almost 4 years now living abroad. But
so interesting. So you have a lot to say about all of those experiences. I think we're going to have a part 2. I thought I was going to have to divide this video up into part 1 and part 2, but it came back on. It was really struggling to get back. Come on, zoom us over. Come on, zoom work with us.
No! It would have been the ultimate cliffhanger, like end the interview right there.
The ultimate cliffhanger. What happened with Jordanna and Kim? Jordanna, excuse me. Sorry, my Spanish is taking over the pronunciation. Okay, one more question, and then I'm going to ask you to add whatever we haven't talked about. What are the kinds of people that are in your lives right now?
What kind of people are in my life right now?
Yeah.
The kind of people that I find that are sticking around are the people that are authentic, and the people that are not afraid to admit that they're not perfect. Good. But that aren't judgmental. I don't have time for the judge, the gossipy, the judgment and stuff like that. And so, I mean, even people that haven't traveled, as long as they're open-minded and willing to talk and ask questions and be genuine and again, I keep saying authentic.
No, but that's our theme today. Our theme today is authenticity.
Mhm. And so those are the kind of people that are kind of, had in my life right now, people that are loyal and that are giving, and that probably the number one quality is the people that look for the best in others.
Yes.
The people that don't automatically assume the worst in others or the worst objectives or worst motives. And so, because that's the kind of person I want to be. I want to see the beauty in everybody. I want to assume the best in everybody that I come across, that everybody is working with the best intentions to the best of their abilities. So that's the kind of people I want to be around, or people that.
Amen to that. I want you in my life. I've already decided.
I know, like we're gonna meet. We're gonna have fun.
We're gonna be besties. Too bad we're
How come
too
you have
far
to be
away,
on the
but that's
other side of
okay.
the country?
What's that?
How come you have to be on the other side of the country?
That's okay. You're gonna be here for Christmas. We're gonna hang out. I know that.
Yes.
That's awesome. You guys get here next week, right? To
Yes, we
Guadalajara? And you're gonna
Yes.
be here for what, 2 weeks?
We're gonna be here. We're gonna be there for 2 weeks. Yes, Guadalajara, and then
For the
spending some
holidays.
time in Manzanillo. Like I've never been to Manzanillo, so we'll see. And then
Manzanillo, you have to go through our town to get there, by the way.
Okay. And so I don't know if we're driving or flying or bus.
There's
I
no
don't
way
know.
to fly. You have to drive. There's no
Okay.
airport in Manzanillo. Oh, wait, Manzanillo, excuse me. I'm thinking of Manzanitla. Okay, no.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sending you the wrong way.
I know, like,
Manzanillo is
the
a beach, is a
and that's what
smaller
I-
beach than Puerto Vallarta near Puerto Vallarta. Yes, lower than that. Yes, sorry.
We have all the Aztec names in Mexico on that side of the coast, and we have all the Mayan names on
That's right.
the Yucatan Peninsula. It's fascinating. But
Yeah, it's pronunciation torture, more than a challenge, it's a torture for me. Is there anything else that we haven't discussed that you would like to bring into this interview?
No, I feel like I have opened my heart, opened my brain, and just kind of dumped everything out. I have so much to say, obviously, about many different things, but we can have a part 3, 4, and 5.
I think it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen, definitely. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And our viewers, we're sorry, we can't control what the internet does, but I'm so glad you came back.
Here, my side, your side.
Yeah, it must be a geographical thing because we're like, I mean, the flight, just so those people that are located around the world that are listening to our interview, when I first came to Mexico, I had no idea how large this country was. The distances are vast. I think the flight must be 3 hours from where we live. How long is it? You're flying?
I'm
2.5.
About 3.5 hours. It's about 4 or 5 hours, I think, from here to Tijuana.
Yeah,
we like to do that. Like we like to just cross over the border into Tijuana and then fly within Mexico.
Oh, so your flight is going from Cancun to Tijuana, then Guadalajara? Is that your route?
No, we're going to go to Cancun, Guadalajara, and then when we go to California, we're going to go to California afterwards. We're going to go Guadalajara to Tijuana, cross the border, and then just drive up home.
And drive. Wow, all the logistics that are involved in this.
That's fun.
Yeah, I was just thinking on my way coming down here from Northern California to Mexico, the flight was 3.5 hours. And then from Cancun within Mexico, this is an idea how vast. You're on the other side, on the Caribbean side. It would probably be 2.5 hours or 3 hours to Guadalajara from Cancun, right?
Yeah, at least.
That's about right. At
least,
or even
look at it yet.
Yeah.
I know I need to psych myself up mentally because I'm traveling with a 5-year-old on that flight.
There's a lot going on there. You got, and our kids, my 2 boys are almost a decade apart, just like yours are. I have a 25-year-old and a 15-year-old, and yours are 9, so just a little bit less. That's awesome. Yeah. I think, we're gonna have definitely to be continued, or to be.
Yes, to be continued.
To be continued.
You can also pour your audience, like, what do they want to hear, right?
That too, we're going to do that. So I would just want to say a side note before we actually disconnect again, but on purpose. For those of you that are watching, if you like this interview, please let us know, and please feel free to place your comments below. We're actually building a community. So your feedback is invaluable to us. And don't forget to subscribe, of course, as we feature a lot of interesting perspectives in these podcast interviews in both English and Spanish. So Jordanna, I'm so thankful that you came today and that you came back for the second time after we disconnected, not on purpose. Do you want to be contacted? If so, how can people contact you?
Okay, great. Yes, absolutely. I would love to connect. My name is spelled Jordanna, is Jordanna, and then Espinosa is Espinosa. So my email is Jordanna_Espinosa@hotmail, or I have my Facebook handle, which is Jordanna.Espinosa, and the same with Instagram as well. And so as I build my social media presence, everything will probably always connect back to those two things.
Okay, and we will put the links in the description as well. So
Okay, sounds
anything
good.
that you want to put in there, your business, whatever, everything will be put in the description. I just can't thank you enough for coming. I have a new friend. I'm so excited.
Yes.
Expat mamas. And what should we say in Spanish? Expat mamas.
Yes, expat mamas.
Mamas.
Expatriadas.
Well, God bless you, and we are going to be very much in touch after this. Thank you, viewers, for watching, and God bless, and Merry Christmas, and Feliz Navidad.
Un abrazo a todos.
Un abrazo a todos. Adiós.
Bye.
Bye.